On the 21st of June 2025, my amazing daughter Cipi arranged for me to be on the honor flight to Washington, D.C. from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We started out at 6 o'clock in the morning at the Milwaukee Air Terminal, and amazingly, when we got there, there were volunteers to receive the veterans that were coming for this 6 o'clock flight that had been there since 2 o'clock in the morning. And this was the start of our trip. We met the man in the yellow shirt. People in the yellow shirts were all over the place to follow. And the first thing that they said to us is, "Welcome home. Thank you for your service." And that wasn't amazing because we knew there were people that were volunteering to bring us there. But as we came in, many more people not associated with the flight said, "Welcome home. Thank you for your service." This was an amazing thing that happened all the day long, wherever we went, that people were welcoming us home. Why was this so amazing? 50 years earlier, I returned from Vietnam on July 6, 1968, after 1 year in Vietnam, and this was completing my second year in service. And there was nobody there except my wife and family that said, "Welcome home." Thank you for your service. It was as if the Vietnam veterans had committed a heinous crime by being veterans of a war that they were called up to by the government of the United States, by the American president, JFK, and following that Lyndon Johnson, and following that Richard Nixon. All of them had had a report that this war was not one that they could win, that the people of Vietnam wanted to be free of all foreigners, Chinese first, French second, and the Americans third. The war was not the fault of the soldiers. They did not serve their country to fight a war that was wrong. They served their country because their country made them proud and that they were patriots of the American people. This was a very emotional day for me, good emotions. It was a catharsis for all that I felt was due to our servicemen and came beautifully from the sponsors of the honor flight and all of the volunteers on the honor flight and all of the people that showed up to welcome us home 50 years later. Let me tell you, there were an awful lot of people welcoming us home. It warmed my heart. It brought tears to my eyes, but they were tears of thought, of memories of what hadn't happened before, but was happening now. They were welcoming us home. If you look at some of the pictures, you may be able to detect how many people were there. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there were 150 to 200 people welcoming us home as we left on our honor flight. On our plane, there were about 60 veterans and 60 companions and 30 volunteers on each flight, and there were 2 honor flights that day. We were on the second one. We had to wait about an hour and a half to take off because of a problem with the air conditioning on the airplane. It was fixed, and we lit off and arrived in Dulles Airport, and we walked through Dulles Airport at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and Washington time was probably 12 noon, and here were another 300 people welcoming us home, shaking our hands and greeting us. We went to a number of monuments throughout the day. We started out at Arlington Cemetery after a 30-minute bus ride to Arlington Cemetery. The bus ride was headed off by 4 volunteer patrolmen from Maryland who accompanied our 4 buses to Arlington Cemetery. And it was most heartening as traffic stopped for us and was delayed by our buses. But we were honored people, honored veterans, and this was wonderful. At Arlington Cemetery, they had the changing of the guard, and as the honor guard was marching with their rifle, he skidded one step on purpose to salute the honored veterans that were on the flight. And this happened several times. I only saw one of the skids, but this was on purpose, something they're not supposed to do, but did in honor of the veterans that were there. A most moving ceremony. Next, we went to the Iwo Jima monument to the Marines and saw this very, very impressive statue of the Marines raising the flag at Mount Suribachi in Iwo Jima. A very moving monument, and we had a nice group picture of the veterans that you can see in the pictures that Casey took for us. Casey was my accompaniment throughout the day. She pushed me around in a wheelchair some. I walked some, but I had enough exercise. Casey got a good exercise when she was pushing me around the grounds of the Washington monuments. We then went by bus and went to the Pentagon and saw the monument there for the people that died at 9/11 on the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. And there was another area where the people in the Pentagon had a monument in the same area. You won't see any pictures of the Pentagon because that is forbidden and there are people watching, and if some tourist takes pictures of the Pentagon, they have to delete the pictures in front of monitors because it's forbidden. We then went to the Monument Square. Some of the people went off to see the Washington or the Lincoln Monument. I did not go to the Lincoln Monument. Time was somewhat limited, and I'd seen it many times. But we did go to the Vietnam Memorial, big blocks of granite in a V shape, with the steps or the path going down into the ground and the monument right next to you. While we were there, a very nice lady played taps for us, and some of the veterans were able to find people that they knew that died that they had fought with. This one man found 7 of his fellow veterans that had died in Vietnam. It was most moving and brought tears to my eyes when they played the taps. And we then went on to the World War II monument. I took a couple of pictures with Casey right in front of the Wisconsin monument at the World War II monument. And from there, we went to a tour of the FDR monument. I'd never even heard of that before. Obviously, I knew who FDR was, but he has a very beautiful separate monument with some waterfalls, a couple of waterfalls in the monument, and also tribute to Eleanor Roosevelt, the only president's wife that is honored in all the memorials throughout the memorial area. There's some of the people went to the Martin Luther King monument that was also in the same area. I didn't see that. Altogether, I enjoyed the tour of the monuments, but it was not the highlight of the day. The highlight of the day was yet to come, and more surprises that I wasn't expecting. So on the plane back to Milwaukee, which arrived around 9:30 at night, before we arrived, there was mail call. What was mail call? Well, we knew in Vietnam what mail call was. That was when I got my tapes from Grandma Donna, and Scott and Terry would sometimes talk on the tapes, and almost daily I got a letter from Grandma Donna, and every day I would write a letter to her. My letters would always start out just to have page fillers because I didn't know what to write. I mean, there was not that much happening at the hospital. So I'd say, another hot day in Vietnam, just like all the others. So at any rate, here was mail call, and they read off the names and handed them, and each veteran received a large white envelope filled and packed with letters. There were letters from friends, there were letters from relatives, there were letters from lots of people I don't know. All the letters from my friends and relatives thanked me for my service and recognized this and recognized that. And it was very warm feeling to get all of these letters thanking me for my service. Yeah, lots of interesting mail. I'm not even halfway through
it. Take your time, enjoy it.
And such. But the letters from little children, there were cards with drawings on them from children that must have been 6 and 7 and 8 years old. There were letters from children in high school. There were letters from all kinds of strangers saying wonderful things and thanking me for my service and recognizing the courage of the soldiers and the veterans, and that we had gone through a lot to serve our country, and really showing great appreciation. These were meaningful because strangers had to sit down and compose these letters to the various people that they sent them to. And the warm feelings just continued to grow. And then they wound up with the arrival in Milwaukee. We were stopped at near the exit of Gate D, which is not the normal landing area for Southwest Airlines, but it was where we came down on this flight. And we were stopped and held up so that we could pretty much all march in together, the 60 veterans, and the guides separated themselves from us. The main guide for the red bus that I was on was Dawn, who had met with CP in the first place a year ago to arrange this tour. The arrival at Milwaukee, once they started us going through, was remarkable. The first thing that was a bagpipe band playing hearty marching music for armies from Britain to the US. And then there was a hall of flags held up by previous veterans from Vietnam with jackets showing all of their service to the country, and many who had been on honor flights themselves before and welcomed back. But as we marched in, here it is 9:30 at night, and there are at least 500 people welcoming us. By the time I'd gone through shaking hands with almost all 500 people, and they all welcome home. Thank you for your service. Again, more and more tears from my eyes as I realized that I really was welcomed home. People cared that I had served this country and had given up my time with my family, with my children, to serve the country. And so there was a parade of these flags, about 6 of them on each side, held by veterans, and everybody is thanking you. And there's this whole line of people that had come to the airport specifically for the one purpose, to thank the veterans. And the 500 people there, among them was CP, my daughter, and I'm sure among them were family members from the other returning veterans. But the returning veterans only numbered about 60 people, and they didn't have 500 family members there. This 500 that was there were people that wanted to welcome home the veterans. And this wasn't a one-time occurrence, it was with every honor flight. And it was most meaningful to Vietnam veterans. Many of us had grown up and had seen our heroic veterans from World War II return home, and they were strongly welcomed. There were parades honoring them. People turned out with flags and with gratefulness to welcome these veterans home. it was different for the Vietnam veterans, and it was a very special, heartwarming surprise to me to have this wonderful, wonderful day in celebration of our service. And I thank you so much, CP, for working with Dawn and arranging this for me.
Dad, how did it feel to have your grandchild, Casey, be the one with you?
Oh, it was so good to have Casey there. She was constantly asking me as we walked around, are you tired, Grandpa? Do you need to use the wheelchair, or would you like to use the wheelchair? And she pushed me around in the wheelchair for about half of the trip, and about half of the trip I walked. It was really hot day. It was in the mid-90s in Washington, D.C. There was constant water, cold water to drink, and Gatorade if you wanted that. And there was an umbrella to put over your head to keep the sun off your head. As you can see from some of the pictures, I wore my veteran's cap the entire day. It kept the sun off my head, which was a good thing, but it was a memento of my time in service.
Did somebody say something to you about the Jewish war veterans hat?
There was another person that did comment on the Jewish war veterans hat, and during the trip over to the World War II veterans area, there were two Jewish men in their early 20s who came up to me and identified themselves as Jewish, and they recognized my Jewish star on my chest, and they said, I didn't know there were Jewish veterans of that war. I said, the Jewish people fought in all of the wars of our country. We've been proud defenders and proud of our American heritage, as I was proud of our American heritage.
One last thing, Dad. What would you just say to other veterans who have a chance to do this trip?
I would say that if they're Vietnam veterans, that they absolutely should do this. World War II, Korean vets, they were all welcomed home. The World War II vets especially. But the Vietnam veterans were ignored because the war was not a popular war and probably was a wrong war for us to be in. Nevertheless, we served our country, and we all did our best, and we deserved the welcome that we finally received. And let me tell you, it really was a warm welcome.